Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, and I thought today what we discuss is one of two things happening. I filled my gas tank, and now it's pretty much empty, and I can't find the leak. Well, what's going on? Is it evaporating? No. What ends up happening is the float in the carburetor regulates how much fuel comes in, and that has a needle above it, and it regulates the level of gasoline in the carburetor. Now your newer models have the electric solenoid on the bottom, and all it is it when you turn the key off, the plunger comes up and it shuts the fuel off, and when you turn the key on, the plunger drops and it opens it up. Now over time that will wear and start to fail. It was more common with the older engines that we saw, and that is it's got to go somewhere. If it's filling that carburetor bowl up, where else can it go? Well, it's going to go one of two places. It's either going to fill the head behind the spark plug, or if the valves are open, it's going to allow the fuel to go down and into the base of your engine. We've seen many of both. We've seen both here. And what you end up having to do is, if it's in the head, you're going to have to unscrew the spark plug and then crank it over, and you will see fuel go shooting out through the spark plug hole. And we call it deadheading. Customer tries his machine and it won't turn over. He's put the charger on the battery, still no luck. He even checked the battery to see if it was fully charged, and it was. But if that fuel is now in the head and it has no place to go, and you try to turn it over, your piston is going to come up until it meets resistance of the fluid, and it can't get out through the spark plug hole. It's not going to turn over, no matter how hard you crank on it. So if it's in the head, just take the spark plug out and turn it over and let it blow out, and then leave the spark plug right out of it. Let it evaporate out of the head unit. If it's in the base of the machine, then you need to drain the whole system. And with the ethanol fuel, you're not only dealing with gas that'll break down oil in the base, but now you've got water. So we have a suction pump. It's about that big, and it has a little hose. You can just stick it in there and it sucks everything right out. And we use that on a lot of stuff that it's hard to get the oil out of to do an oil change on. So that brings me to the next thing. You figured out that you've got fuel either in the head or in the base and how to deal with it. What if you're not getting any fuel anywhere? And you got gas in the tank, and it'll fire on carburetor cleaner, which you can't get any fuel to come down to the carburetor in the bowl. The usual culprit on that one is the electric fuel solenoid. It just threads up in. Now I know some guys that, do-it-yourselfers that will take that out, put an O-ring on it with a threaded bolt with the same thread as your electric solenoid, and thread that back in and just tighten it up. Alright, what are you doing then? You're just going old school. Old school was, you want to make sure that carburetor, the float and the needle were working properly, or you'd have fuel in the base. But if you're not getting any fuel at all, good chances are that your solenoid isn't working. See, you can simply take that, unthread it, and take a set of jumpers, and one's hot and one's ground. Touch it one way and see if it actually moves. A lot of times it gets really gummed up because ethanol has a way of varnishing anything that's there. Again, we try to tell people to run their fuel out, get an inline shut off. It's easy to do. Cut the fuel line, put it in, shut it off, and that way you know there's no fuel getting in to get to the base or the head. With the electric solenoid not working properly, a lot of times you could take carburetor cleaner and just clean it all up and get rid of the varnish that's on it. Because you'll know it the minute it's working, because it'll click in, click out, click in, click out. And that brings us to the biggest issue when machines come to our shop. Fuel storage. If you take fuel with ethanol in it, it will draw moisture. And the next thing you know, you're going to have water in your fuel. And what I normally hear is, it ran great all last year, how come it doesn't run now? Well, it's because that fuel in that tank has actually got condensation and drew moisture. So now you got water in the fuel. So the way it sits, so what ends up happening is you have water on the bottom, and then you have your ethanol, and then you have your gas. And the big term for it is phase separation. So when you go out in the spring of the year and you go to start your lawnmower and you wonder why it won't run, it's because most machines suck from the bottom of the tank. And what's going to be in the bottom of your tank? Water. I don't know of any small engine that runs on water, or even a mix light of water in the fuel. There's a lot of additives out there that people say work. I don't know. But I do know in our shop, and if you're going to be doing a small engine, the first thing you need to do once you have compression on that engine, spark on that engine, and it fires up, is drain all the fuel. It's going to save you a lot of time. I've had people say, well, it's fresh. I put it in this year. But it was from a fuel tank container that you had fuel from last year, and you just poured it into your machine. So it's not technically fresh. It's in a storage over the winter. It's going to develop condensation. Most vehicles can run on that. You may get a little bit of a hesitation and stuff like that when she gets a little bit of water in her. But when you take your single and twin cylinders, they can't. So what we do here in this shop is, once we have compression, spark, and fire with carb cleaner, is we drain the fuel tank. And that may simply be unhooking the hose off the carburetor and running it into a bucket. And I don't care how full the tank is, it's getting drained. And then most carburetors, you can take, if it's got the fuel solenoid on the bottom, just unscrew that and let all the fuel out of the carburetor as well. As we talked about previously, for less than $6 you can get an inline fuel shut off. That's going to save you a lot of headaches. And I always recommend that you turn the fuel shut off when you're not going to be using it, and let the engine run the fuel out of the carburetor, so there's no fuel in the carburetor as well. So I've been asked, what is the best way to store fuel if you're not going to be using it for a while? And the correct answer is, don't store it. If you're using the ethanol free, you should be fine. There are some additives out there. Actually there's so many companies out there trying to say they can do this and that, and I'm not so sure they can do it either. But you have your Stables out there, but the best way to do it is to buy premium gas, non-ethanol, and don't even store that over long periods of time. Get what you need, and then keep it fresh. And if you're going to store something for a long period of time, please invest in a fuel shut off. It's worth its weight in gold. Turn the fuel off and let the system run itself out. Doesn't matter whether it's a lawnmower, snow blower. You can't do it on your weed eaters and stuff like that, but your bigger engines, you can. And that's going to save you money on repair bills if you're a person that has the lawnmower or rototiller. And it's going to make your customers happy that you got these fixes in place and explained it to them, and how it'll, in the long run, it will save them money. So I hope this video has been helpful to you guys, whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or if you're a guy trying to run a shop or a beginner in the business, or an old dog that just kind of didn't think this out. On that note, you guys have a great day. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget, post in the comments.